and I'm peeling off my label as they peel the corner guard. Dance down the sheet to the tune of Hurry, Hurry Hard. And my popcorn squeaks a question, wonders why I'm not at home, where you wait beside a silent telephone. But I often like to sort of do a little bit of research to try and kind of put into perspective who I'm talking to. And I started that with you, and it just turned into pages and pages and pages of notes. Everything from where you came from to how you got into skateboarding, how you got out of skateboarding, all of the championships you've won from, I believe you won the first place pro at the UK Roundup in 2017, was it?
Yeah, I won a few of those. Yeah.
There's a bunch of them. You got first places,
Mm,
you got first seconds, you got second at Paderborn in 2015. Anyways, there's so many things there. And then as you go further, you realize that you're running a skateboard company that's helping keep freestyle skateboarding alive in the UK.
hmm
And then you're working with Seismic Wheels, which, by the way, I got up here on your recommendation, and they are, no offense to Witter and all the wheels that I like that he makes down at Decomposed, but the Seismics are blowing me away. Anyways,
Yeah.
so I'm really lucky to have you here today. And let's just start by talking to some of the audience. This isn't a skateboard audience that we're talking to. It's a I don't even know what it is. I don't know who my audience is. They're just people who like to tune in every week. Um,
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Whiskey Wednesday show once again with Ken Tizzard, your host. We've got a very special guest today. As you all know, in the last year, I have rediscovered my passion for skateboarding, and I've been trying to find my way back into what fits my 55-year-old life as a skateboarder. And it's been a really interesting journey. Last year, we started out with Yo-Yo Schultz, who was a old school freestyle skater and one of my idols. And we had a great chat with him. And that led me into a whole bunch of things over the last year, which recently ended off with a message from Yo-Yo to me saying, "Hey, I think Tony Gale would be a great guest for your show." And I reached out to Tony just this week. And as we were planning this sort of skateboarding thing, I've had a few other skaters sort of shuffling around. We did the MLM thing. Tony's been on my radar for a while, and I'm really lucky. He, out of the blue, he got back to me. He said, "Absolutely, I heard you play a Weaker Than song, and I thought this is great." So I'm in, and he set up the time, and he's here with us today.
I, for context, I mean, I'm English. The accent gives it away. I grew up in a working class former mining village. There was like nothing. There was no one, right? And it was Christmas '99, and my sister, who now, I mean, she was living in New York at the time. She now lives upstate somewhere. She was coming home, and she said to me on the phone, like, "Hey, Tony, like, what do you want for Christmas?" And out of nowhere, I was 11 years old, and I just said, "I want a skateboard." I didn't really know why. I was just this useless, like, I was no good at anything athletic. I was skinny. I had an undiagnosed autoimmune disorder at the time, and like I was just in a I was clumsy. I would trip over anything. My mum was furious. Like my mum was ready to murder her. Um, and yeah, like I just wanted to do it. I wanted to prove I could do it. It was never about, I guess in hindsight, like the Tony Hawk hype machine was just kicking off. He'd kind of landed the 900 that year, I believe. Um, But like, in the middle of Derbyshire, like we didn't know any of that. We were so far behind. Like I'd only just found out that Nirvana was a thing, and Kurt was already long dead, right? So I always joke that like that village is like 10, 20 years behind the rest of the country even.
I'm becoming acutely aware of the different stages of life of a skateboarder. Has that changed with you at all? Do you find an age change with your skateboarding or a maturity?
Yeah. Yeah, I think maturity more than age. I Yo Schultz, who you interviewed previously, he said in a conversation somewhere online, Um, it takes at least 20 years to really start to understand freestyle. And that really angered a lot of people because, you don't like the idea. It's really unpopular that like, oh, I love this thing and I do this thing and I know all about this thing. I know all the tricks. Like, but you don't really understand it. You can know something and not really understand it. So what I found in myself, and I see it in a lot of other freestylers, regardless of age, um, your first, 5, 10 years is like, oh, look at the trick, look at the trick, look at the trick, look at the trick. I did a trick, and it's, oh, I did a rail trick, I did a rail flip, I did a Casper, I did a pogo, like
Mhm.
and there's a lot of I wish I could remember the philosopher. I want to say it's Roland Barthes, but it's the spectacle of the new,
Mm.
right? And it's kind of like the Emperor's New Clothes sort of thing. Like you're constantly looking for this new and exciting thing. Oh yeah, it's so new and it's exciting, it's brilliant. And the problem is that when you're constantly chasing that, it's hollow, right? There's nothing beneath that, and eventually that excitement about the new thing, it's the same with commercialism. Like you go out, you've got to have the newest phone, you've got to have the newest camera, you've got to have the newest whatever. Like you're always looking for the newest thing, and if there's no substance underneath that, if there's no real passion and love and like grace underneath that,
Hmm.
then when that spectacle of the new fades away, you're just what's there. So, I grew up really admiring the guys who rolled, the guys who went fast, the guys who did the big stuff, like Daryl Grogan doing double M80s and
Hmm.
um Japan is a really unique case. So freestyle has come back not out of the blue, not purely by chance, but like it has been a fight.
Hmm.
Hard, hard fight. Like really a lot of work has gone into this. And there's been a lot of having to reinvent the wheel. Like talking about Britain in particular, we had historically, kind of being a bit reductive here, but we really had like three significant British pros in freestyle
Okay.
in the 80s. We had Mac, who is Scottish and absolutely, to put it bluntly, batshit crazy. I love the man. Love him to bits. Like, he's great. We had Shane Rouse, who is very much the seasoned professional,
Hmm.
former world champion, took everything very seriously, and berates me on a regular basis whenever we skate together. Again, I love the man. And then there's Don Brown, who out of the three was the only one that went, England's a bit shit, and went to America instead. And as a result, like he had arguably a much better career because being in England in the 80s, like no one was paying attention to you.
Hmm.
Um, but what that meant when freestyle disappeared in the 90s, none of those guys were around. So my generation comes up, end of the 90s, start of the 2000s, and we were working blind.
Hmm.
We had no idea what we were doing. We were basically having to reverse engineer stuff. We're looking through archives. We're looking at, old photo sequences in old Thrasher magazines. We're looking at like old PAL videos and things like that. Like, how does this work? That's hard. And it's not just Britain that was doing that. Like Marius Constantin in Romania, like he started skating in the mid 2000s, and there was nothing in Romania. Like he built that scene up like blood and toil,
Hmm.
blood, sweat, and toil. Like he put a lot of work in. Um, Japan is the exception because all the way through the 90s, a lot of the skaters there, especially the Fugees, Masahiro and
Hmm.
Toshiaki, like they kept going. So you get to the early 2000s when I get involved in freestyle. Like I found out what freestyle was in 2001 and was like immediately like, yeah, doing it. Um, and like I say, we're all scrambling around just trying to figure out how the bloody hell kickflips work. And the Fugees, they still got their scene. And they were
Hmm.
putting out these incredible videos called Marvelous, Marvelous 1 and 2. Highly recommend if you get a chance to watch them. Still incredible skateboarding, like to this day.
Okay.
So then, as scenes around the world start to coalesce and networking happens and events start happening, um, new generation, new blood start coming in. The Fugees are there to teach them.
Right.
So then you get the Izumi Yamamotos, you get the Akina Gales, you get these Kawasaki's, you get Yuta Fuji, Masahiro's son. Like
Hmm.
these kids didn't have to go through the crap that
Right.
we did. They just get Masahiro going like, do it like this, and they go, oh yeah, yeah.
I came here from the city trying to find some peace of mind to get myself on track and to buy myself some time. This
One of
time.
my favorite skaters in the world, and I think she's still 15. I forget whether she's turned 16 yet. She's world champion at that age in the women's division.
Wow.
So I'm like, look, I want to support this kid. We gave her a pro model, and I surprised her with it. And it's like, look, I our position as skaters, pros, to me, if you're a pro skater, you should be lifting people up. It's not
Yes.
about just like presenting yourself. Like, no, a pro is the thing that holds the whole scene together. We
Yes.
build it up, and that rising tide should lift all boats, right?
Hmm. Exactly.
I'm going to end up missing someone out, but you mentioned MLM earlier. Obviously, Moonshine. There's Cyrus in Hungary. There's Never Enough in Germany. There's Waltz, Decomposed, Mode in the US. There's Proto Style in Malaysia. There's M80 in Japan. Like, there's definitely some that I've forgotten. And I apologize if I have. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mean it. I'm not slighting anyone by saying it. It's just, yeah, there are more now. There's a lot more.
Yeah.
But I think one of the most important things, though, is that all of these companies that I've named, they are freestyler owned and operated.
Yep.
We Freestyle is the single most punk rock part of skateboarding,
Mm.
where you look at companies like Independent or Santa Cruz or these things that have been around for a long time. They're owned by big corporations. They're owned by big money investors, and
Hmm.
they are presenting this idea of teenage rebellion as a pre-packaged thing that they can sell. It's a consumer product,
Of
right?
course.
And it's very, very carefully manipulated to be like, yeah, look at you, you're so cool, you're so aggro with your, whatever. Like, no, no, you're not. It's just, it's a plastic punk, right?
Yeah.
It's the I love the Sex Pistols, but it's closer to what Malcolm McLaren did with the Sex Pistols than it is, Black Flag. I view freestyle right now kind of like the East Coast punk scene of the 80s, the Discord records, the, Fugazi, that sort of scene. Like, we own this, we control it, we distribute it, and there's a beauty in that. There's a power in that. I'm very proud of the fact that we've managed to do that. You look at what that's achieved as well. Christian Heiser, who runs Never Enough Skateboards out in Germany,
Everything.
he starts doing these competitions, Euro Freestyle. I think the first one was 2019, maybe, and that grew and that grew and that grew. And last year, World Freestyle is perhaps the first freestyle contest in all of history to have more than 100 competitors.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's
I heard that.
huge.
You look at the best punk rockers and the best punk rock labels. I had Joey on the show recently from Joey Shithead from DOA, and
Oh,
I'm pretty sure that he's still stuffing envelopes in the basement. He wouldn't admit it. He wouldn't admit it, but I'm pretty sure he's still stuffing envelopes in the basement. And you look at those guys. You mentioned Fugazi. You go back to the Minor Threat days. Sort of skateboarding, living in the house, and putting out their own tapes and mailing out their 45s. That was the grassroots way to do it. And everybody I've met in the freestyle world seems to be doing that. My first connection was with MLM, Justin Lloyd here in Canada. And, when I wanted to get back, decided I wanted a freestyle deck last winter, and reaching out to him. And, I went down to meet him, and it's this kid living in a basement of his mom's house, with a little set of, with a stack of boards and a bunch of tools and some trucks, and Witter from Decompose sets him up with some stuff, and he's the Canadian freestyle company. I mean, that's he's the only Canadian person making freestyle decks.
it's not that deck. That goddamn Mullen deck is the second worst freestyle board I've ever skated. I won't mention the first one. I don't want to start that fight again. But it is truly atrocious. And it really angers me, the amount of people who still idolize that man, considering how little help. Like, he is a multi-millionaire who ran one of the biggest skateboard companies in the world at that time. And he,
Yeah.
at any point, could have funded, helped, supported freestyle and freestylers. I've had multiple people throughout the skateboard industry who've said to me, like very respected, very big kind of influential people, they say, we really like what you're doing. We really like you as a person. We like you as a skateboarder. We like freestyle, but we don't want to support freestyle because we're worried we'll lose our core market. We're worried we'll lose street skateboarders because it goes against this prepackaged thing. Businessmen just don't get it because they don't care about the culture. They don't care about the overall ecosystem. They just care about board sales. That's it. So I rode every board I could get my hands on. Every single board, like big, small, anything I could find, I would try because I wanted to understand all of these nuances.
Mm-hmm.
But like little things, like the way the angle of the kicktail, the radius of the kicktail, like how smooth that curve is, the position of that in relation to the trucks, all of these things, they all make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, like my Pro model when it came out was exactly what I needed for my tricks and my trick set. So we've got no concave in the middle because the concave, as an aside, I play banjo a little bit. I'm not particularly great, but I do play banjo.
Yeah.
And I once heard a banjo player say like, "Oh yeah, frets on the banjo are like speed bumps. They just get in the way." That's the way I feel about concave. Like concave exists to make a board rigid and to hold it to your feet in midair.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of those are useful in freestyle, so we'll just get rid of it. Like it's. And the number one thing that I find, like if you, the listener, or you can take one thing from this ramble, people are thinking about skateboards wrong. You know, the width, right?
Mm-hmm.
Width is not determined by foot size, and width is not the most important thing. Width is determined by the tricks you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to do a lot of rail tricks, if you want to do a lot of flip tricks, choose a 725 or a 73, maybe a 74. Any wider than that, you're very much ruining your rail stability.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do things where the board wants to stay flatter, like shove-its and footwork, go to 7.6. Anything 8 inch above, that is purely designed to stay stable in the air. So that's the sort of stuff you take on vert ramps and street. That has no place in freestyle. It doesn't help. So what I tell people, especially kids, like, oh yeah, Tony, how'd you get sponsored? How'd you get sponsored? I'm like, don't. Just don't. Because A, if that's all you're looking for, you're not going to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And B, you know, when you do get sponsored, there's work. Like there's work in being a professional skateboarder. It's a lot of time investment in, you know, I refuse to do the whole bullshit social media marketing thing now. Like I'm over it. I'm not gonna.
Mm-hmm.
I hate Instagram with a passion. I think the Zuck can frankly go fuck himself. Like there's no easy way of saying that. But you know, being on the road, doing shows, doing coaching, like getting involved with competitions, you know, running organizations, all of this stuff is a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, a lot of guys who've become pro and then gone on to do those things. We don't have a lot of time for skateboarding like we used to.
That's what I hear more and more. Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought, oh, I'll go self-employed. I'll start my own online skate shop. I'll have loads of time. I'll have all the time in the world to go skateboarding. Nah, very much the opposite. It's hard. So if you enjoy, yeah, all of that is terrible. So if you enjoy skateboarding, go skate. Don't try and make a career out of it because you'll just ruin it for yourself. Just go skate, have fun. That's the good stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, I mean, from somebody who has spent the last year getting back into it and kind of sussing out the community and the landscape, you have done a fantastic job of being an ambassador for freestyle skating. I mean, you even commented on one of my early videos back in August that I had posted somewhere on Facebook. I was just like, "Oh my
Mm.
God, Tony Gale just commented on my post." Like, well, that's so weird. Why is he? Why is he mentioning? What? You know, it was just a strange thing for me. I was just like, "Wow, okay, well then." But it was to me, it was just a sign that you're like you are, you know, you're pretty genuine in what you're doing. And you know, talking to you today, it's an amazing eye opener to how much work it does take a passion project like the love of skateboarding, you know,
Yeah.
to become a life force where everything in your life is revolving around it. And I understand it. I do it with music, and this last year, skateboarding has become a big part of my life too. But it's really interesting
Mm.
to you know, to talk to the people that have fought the battles to keep it alive over the last 20 years.
Skate shops in the UK, I assume almost everywhere, they just sell the same stuff. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same goddamn shit, and most of it's terrible quality and run by arseholes. And one thing that I've really liked is that through Offset, I've been able to say, like, hey, you know, you're making a great product and you're a really good guy. I want to support that. And this stuff that I've bought in purely for ideological reasons that I'm like, you know what? I want to back this. Bring it
Mm-hmm.
in. You know, I mentioned the marvelous DVDs that the Fugees did. I paid an insane amount to import a whole bunch of them out of Japan. It made no financial or business sense whatsoever. But I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I want that to be there. I want it to be available. I want people to have the opportunity to get this thing.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's an important part of my work ethic with Offset, and I think it's one of the most pleasing, like just good, well-being parts of my existence right now. Just being able to say, like, yeah, you know what? You're doing this. Come on. Let me help promote that for you. Yeah.
Um, it's been great chatting with you, man. It's been nice catching up.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually not catching up, just getting to know you.
Yeah, it's been a really great conversation. You know, thanks for having me here and thanks for letting me ramble about all this stuff.
That's awesome. Anything that you've got that you're promoting that you're coming up? I know your newest deck, the Lionheart, right? Is that the newest
Yep.
one? And that's
Yep.
out on Moonshine now. It's a beautiful deck. Um,
Thanks. Yeah.
and again, if you're over in the UK, you can get it through your place. But in the States, I guess Moonshine has their own stuff direct.
moonshineskateboards.com, they'll do it. I will actually say, like I'm not a big fan of self-promotion and I don't want to promote my own crap. If you like my board, if you like the idea of my board, Carmen's board is built on the same mold because she used to like mine. It just has like smoother curves. Go buy Carmen Yunitz's board. Her graphic is amazing and she's a great skater and I want to support her. Like I want her name out there. Never mind me, I'm old. Who cares? Go go get Carmen stoked. Buy her board and then like tag her in it on Instagram. I want, you know, this little girl in a small town in Romania. I want her board all over the world because she deserves it more than anyone else.
Well, I'll make sure to put some images of that up too and some links for it as well. That's a
Thanks.
great thing for you to do, mate. Great thing for you to do.
Little secret though. So I mentioned the WFSA. We're releasing a global ranking system, the first of its kind that we've been working on for a while. So that goes live in less than an hour, I believe. It's scheduled. So
That's actually really interesting because that's been a topic. I didn't bring it up because it's sort of serious nerd stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, there has been sort of no standardized method up to this point, right?
Yep, I know. So, I mean, one of the first major projects we did for the WFSA was trying to overhaul the judging system for competitions because that's a mess, and try and figure out best practices and new scoring systems. So that was like challenge A. And then I started working on this ranking system, this idea a long time back. So we've been finessing that, checking it with data. We've run 4 or 5 years worth of contest results through it now to try and make sure that it gives out a reliable and fair kind of end of year ranking based on consistency and performance in competitions and engagement and things like that. And I'm really happy with it. I know there's at least one part of it that's going to be quite controversial to people. I'm probably going to have to argue for. But I think overall, like, I think it's a good thing, and hopefully it will help make everything more coherent and cohesive and encourage more engagement. That's really all I want to see. I want to see more events, more engagement, and make it all make sense.
Well, you're doing great work. I mean, everybody involved in the community seems to be doing great work, which is really nice. And you are at the forefront of it. So, thanks for taking the time to chat with a lowly Canadian here about his journey. Um, and
I'll say to you what I said. First time I went to Canada, Kevin Harris gave me this microphone in front of a huge audience, and he's like, "It's your first time in Canada. What do you want to say?" And I'm like, "Thank you for being the better of our two children over here."
well, yeah, I guess you're right on that. I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, that makes total sense. Um, okay, buddy, I will. I'm just trying to look at my notes. I think that's everything. Okay,
Cool.
we're good. I will stay in touch with you for sure, and I'm gonna try and source down one of your boards now. Actually, I know I'm gonna grab the other board. The what was her name
The
again?
Carmen.
Yeah.
Carmen Yanitsa. Yeah.
Okay, I will check that out for sure.
It's a
Thanks again,
beautiful
man.
graphic. Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, man. Thank you.
Talk to
Thank
you
you, Ken, for doing this. This has been great.
again sometime soon. Cheers.
I would like that. Catch you in a bit, mate.
Oh,